this is a movie, Danny, yet again, where you're taking these extraordinary chances, and it must have been bloody hell for you to shoot. I mean, really hard. 22 hours. Wait, what's the 22-minute take thing?
I guess that's what you clocked it at. I don't know because I was.
Oh yeah, no.
Tell us
I had
about
no
that.
idea
Tell
how
us
long
about
I was doing
that one time where you're in the, they've thrown the boulder at you, and you've got to get. What happened there?
Well, Danny, I guess so. You've always told me that that is the moment, or that was the scene where you really figured out how to do a lot of the, some of these more physical, difficult scenes.
Yeah.
That we shot pretty much in sequence, and so early on we did the scene where Aaron, the character, is trapped by the boulder, and he tries to pull himself out with brute strength. And if I remember correctly, he said, "All right, James, just I mean, this is how I want to try and do it. Will you just try and get out? You won't get out, but do everything that you can to get out." And I guess I wanted some clarification. I said, so I should bash it and pull and do anything. And you said, yeah. I said, okay. Well, I'm going to get beat up if I do that. And you said, yeah. And I said, okay. And I said, yeah, okay. And I was game for that because actually the first time that we met, I misunderstood something you said. You said we're gonna go to the real location at one point in this film, and we're gonna go through the whole thing at the real location. And it sounded like a really interesting, unusual experience as an actor. It was almost like a performance piece where I knew that you weren't going to let me die of dehydration or anything, but I understood it as, we're just going to camp out there and do the whole thing. and I was really interested in that. We didn't do that, but when you told me, okay, we're just going to do this take, and you really just do it, I thought, okay, I like this, because if it's an extended take, after a minute or, certainly after 5 minutes, you kind of forget the script or, anything. It just narrows down to the one activity, and if you're really trying to do it, then the physicality takes over, the exhaustion, takes over, the pain takes over, and you're experiencing something that in some ways is more authentic than other kinds of scenes, and in that kind of way. Anyway, sorry, I'm blabbing, but so I was game for that. I was very interested in that, and I did it, and I did get beat up, but it was great, and we did it for 22 minutes. You finally said, "Cool."
But then you cut it up. You edited it down.
But it was interesting because it's the editing was. It dictated so much that basically what we set up is that we'd set up, obviously the story is he's trapped in that canyon, but we'd set up that we would shoot in a set, but the set would be an exact replica, it would not be movable. You traditionally move bits of it in and out so that you could get different angles. So we said no, it'll be sealed and locked so it can't move, so it's absolutely real.
So where was your arm, and how is it secured, and what was the rock made out of?
Well, they're all made out of various plastics, really, and then sometimes they cast elements of stone in them, so the bits of it would be real stone in that, or real cement, and stuff like that to give it that edge. And his hand was actually inside.
The rock felt it was not just like your regular plastic; it was very hard.
Okay.
It's absolutely solid. Yeah, I mean what we gave him inside, because I remember going through all this before we started, is you have to go through this in a lot of detail, is what to give him inside, so that if there's a problem, like something falls from above, he can get out of there, or if a fire starts, because it wasn't sealed, if a fire starts in a film stage, they do happen, these things, And they won't happen if you go through all the procedures, but we had to think this all through. So his hand, he held onto a bar inside the rock so that he could put absolute maximum pressure on the arm. So we had these ingredients, and then we had these cameras, which we sort of developed a bit in Slumdog, and we had 2 cinematographers. But I had no, to be honest, I didn't have any.
These are the red cameras again?
No, they're not red. They're called an SI2K.
Okay.
They shoot like the red shoots, but they're much more flexible cameras. But to be honest, I didn't really know how we would use them. I started, and fortunately, Slumdog and the success it had gives you a bit of confidence. So I wasn't like literally rigidly prepared like you can be sometimes. I thought we should stay a bit loose on this as well, even though it seems a very restrictive idea. And we started, and the first week was spent doing the falling rock, which is a stunt. We're using James sometimes and stunt performers and things like that. And that's all very bitty. And then we came to this first scene because we were going to do everything in sequence, which is after the rock, like you said, after the rock has fallen. And we just went for this idea, and it dictated everything. It dictated everything that we shot from there on. And it gave, and then it allowed us to, in editing, because we'd nothing to cut to, there was no reverses of other people to cut to, or nothing to do really, and we didn't want to use the classic desert landscapes constantly. You know, the wide shot, go back in, the wide shot, go back in. There's very, very few shots of the area he's in, very, very few. The editing becomes a process of jumping his face around the screen, so it moves around the screen like that, and it makes you involved. I mean, it could repel you, I think, if it was anybody else. Lots of other people, it would repel you, because it's James. You start to get pulled in, and you get pulled in more and more, and that was always the idea, is if we could create a style that did pull you in, so that you could tolerate the arm cutting off, because otherwise it's intolerable, I think. But if you felt like, come on, do it, you know, which I believe people on some level do think, just let's get through it, shall we?
No, you're rooting for him to do it. You
just
definitely are.
Get out of there.